We're here again. I never thought I would catch myself doing a response video to another one of Verlisify's videos. Mostly because after I released what was supposed to be the end all be all of these kinds of videos, I think the title was called Verlisify's World of Inconsistency. I figured that a video like that would pretty much cover and address anything Verlisify could say in the future, either about Jenning or about Smogon or anything like that. And I was actually going to leave this one alone too, simply, even though it does basically feature a good friend of mine who I've known for about 2.5 years, who runs the page that makes the comics that he's basically dragging into the mud at this point. So I thought, you know what? Why waste this opportunity? And instead, I can actually get the author of all of these comics onto one of my videos and we can talk about what Verlisify gets wrong and just, I guess, her reaction to everything since she wasn't aware until literally an hour ago. And it's only been a few hours since Verlisify has posted this video, but I actually bothered to watch it all the way through because I was curious that he was talking about a friend of mine and her comics that have become very popular. So without further ado, I'll go ahead and get our guest in the Skype call. I mean, yeah, it was fairly obvious that that one particular comic was based on him, but the rest of them are really not. It's just a it's basically just anything that was wrong with the Pokemon community.
Well, yeah, I mean, the best way to put it is regardless if Verlisify had a YouTube or not, I would be making these comics. Sure, his videos and his philosophies tend to surface in the comics and everything, and a lot of his fanboys also perpetuate it, but those shitty players are around no matter what. Even if he didn't have his YouTube, there would still be an area to poke fun in. That's the thing I don't get, is he flatters himself so hard, and
I know everything has to be about him.
the thing is, and I mentioned this on a comment on my page, the Delcatty thing, if you look, the old comic, because that was a revamp, the old
Mm-hmm.
comic has a generic little girl who's holding a Deden, and he says
Yep.
Deden is trash. I specifically changed it to Wally because I figured every other little character in this comic is a Pokemon character, so I decided to just pull Wally because he was a younger character. He was able to fill the spot. Literally went to Cerebi.com, looked up Wally's actual teams for Omega Ruby and Alpha Sapphire, saw that the weakest one in his roster was most likely Delcatty, and that is how I have no idea why he thinks it's because of something he said in a video. And
Yeah, I
I
mean,
also don't understand that he went and looked up the Smogon set, was like, Delcatty is trash no matter what, which is true. My own point was just don't say, hey, it's trash to some random stranger online. Be like, oh, hey, you can choose this instead, or if you're going to do this, expect this. And
mm-hmm.
he pulls up all this stuff, talks about how Delcatty is trash by all definitions, which whatever, not disagreeing. And then like a few moments later is like, all Pokemon have a spot in
I
competitive.
mean,
Da, da, da. Like,
I guess the point he was trying to make is that you were a hypocrite because in his eyes, you're like the Smogon mouthpiece, which is hilarious because you don't even play Smogon.
I don't even have well, I guess I have an account on Smogon because I go into the art forum sometimes. I have literally never played a showdown match. I mean, I've played Smogon format. That is what I play. I do like playing Smogon singles when I do battle, but I've never used the showdown simulator, and
Exactly.
I don't claim to be a competitive player. This is my opinions on Smogon are actually from such a neutral, unbiased standpoint because I really don't play Smogon that much. I'm really not a competitive player. My opinions on Smogon aren't because I'm constantly on the Smogon forums and playing on Showdown. It's literally what I see in Pokemon Facebook groups. I see a lot of people shit talk Smogon, don't really I know that it goes either way, but I just honestly do not see it, and that's not because I'm a Smogon player, that's because I'm not seeing it.
Yeah, I mean, yeah, because the thing he was trying to say was that he was trying to call you a hypocrite because I guess he thinks your claim is that Smogon never bashes any Pokemon ever, even though there's at least 5 joke entries on the Smogon decks, because it just so happens that the tier that this Pokemon was placed in, it's still trash no matter what. Like, I know they have this for Magikarp. Magikarp has a joke entry. I didn't even know Delcatty had one, and neither did you apparently.
I didn't know.
There's one for like Happiny, but see, that's the point. It's a joke entry, so so he gets to make jokes, but then Smogon doesn't, right?
Yeah, and I mean, regardless of that, that first panel in the comic, the one that circulated, the do's and don'ts,
Right.
that has nothing to do with Smogon or VGC or Verlisify. Those first 2 panels of the 2 trainers talking about team building, and then the next one with Wally being called trash.
I'm willing to bet he missed the fact that that was Wally in the second panel.
Yeah, I mean, I don't know. Probably because he's so focused on himself and how everything relates to himself that he just blindly misses all of these things that signify that it's more general and vague than an attack. Like, that's what I love too, is I'm attacking him. Like, when he's called out how many VGC players on Twitter and on YouTube. Yeah, and like I said, there's so many comics that I have that don't have to do with Smogon, that, you know, are more Gen 1
Pretty
topics,
much.
or, you know, cheating or hacking, whatever your opinion is on it. It's not to do with Smogon. He was literally acting like every single, what do you say, Smogon propaganda. and it's just funny to me because, like I said, that first panel of the do's and don'ts, where do you get any stance on Smogon or VGC? It's literally talking about team building, and it's like he took every chance to be defensive about Smogon when I'm just talking about general courtesy online.
Yeah, I mean, if anything, I think that one comic kind of represents what the Gen 1 series is about. It's based on your experiences as an admin with real people that we deal with, right?
Exactly, and that's the other thing that, you know, Verlisify kind of skimmed over the description I had. It's a wall of text, don't really blame him, but what people don't get is that I, you know, and you too, we're admins. We've been adminning a really large Pokemon group for going on like 3 years.
40K members almost, yeah.
Yeah, and the thing is, like, yeah, we've had to break up so many fights. We've had to explain the logistics of Smogon and hacking and stuff so many times to so many members that it just gets to the point where, like, I'm a cartoonist. I find these opportunities for satire and for punchlines, and I just, you know, illustrate it.
Well, it's kind of the point, because Gen 1 Man is supposed to be this caricature of everything that we have to deal with as admins. So you're not meant to take his point of view seriously.
Yeah, and I want people to ask themselves, the people who get defensive over the Gen 1 guy, is maybe you should keep yourself in check if you're identifying with the dude who, like, is a dick in every panel. Because what people say so much is, well, I don't like Smogon, or I don't like hacking, but I don't act like that. And it's like, okay, cool, then it's not about you. If you are saying and claiming that you know, have your own play preference, have your own play style, and you want to stick to that, you don't agree with other people, but you're not going to go out and bash them, cool. The comics aren't about you. The comics are about the people going and shitting on other people's fun because they're so warped up in their own play style that they just cannot comprehend that other people are playing different ways. Like, you don't have to agree with Smogon, you don't have to agree with hacking. The main point of my comics is just don't be a dick about it. Like, and how he says, like, it's so flipped around, it's so switched around. Like, no, it's just really not. Like, I just honestly don't see competitive players going to people who are more casual or whatever side you want to
I think
pit
there
against
he was
each other.
referring specifically to Smogon towards like VGC players, which again I've never seen. Like, I'll give you an example. Like, PokeMD and Cybertron are like best friends, and PokeAim plays Smogon and Cybertron plays VGC. That's literally how it is.
Those are 2 of my favorite Pokemon YouTubers, and, like, that's the other thing he doesn't get is, and, you know, actual competitive players who read my comics and stuff, I don't have to explain this to them because they know right off the bat, reading the comic, that this isn't bashing Smogon or VGC players that are legitimate VGC players, not the people who build a team because they're bored one day and then they accept
The
challenges and
VGC
stuff like the
singles.
yeah, oh my
Clean
God,
VGC singles.
I want to get into when he was trying to freaking vouch for VGC singles, whatever, but uh yeah, actual real legitimate VGC players will not get defensive from my comics because they know that they coexist. They just do. Many VGC players play Smogon, vice versa, and most VGC players practice using the Showdown simulator. So I
He
mean,
uses the simulator for his videos.
yeah,
That's
you have to
amazing.
at one point you have to at one point just recognize even slightly that Smogon has established itself as like a legitimate platform. And when he's saying like, oh well, if VGC singles don't exist then Smogon doesn't exist, it's like, yeah, fair enough. Like, what are you trying to get
He's
at?
not even
Like,
technically correct about that. Smogon, that community in the beginning used to be Net Battle, and the players on Net Battle is what sparked. That's the competitive interest that sparked Nintendo and the Pokemon Company International to start doing official tournaments. So if anything, it's the other way around from what he's saying. The Smogon community, well, they weren't called Smogon back then. They just used the RBY simulator Net Battle. They made VGC possible. Without their interest, VGC would not exist.
yeah, and I don't know, like, God forbid people want like a slightly legitimate format for 6 versus 6 singles, and I love how he ends, criticizing that Smogon comic with you don't have to play, and then he goes on saying, well, yes, I do have to play Smogon because everyone else does. It's like, dude, you've built your whole YouTube saying you don't like playing Smogon. Obviously you've made it this far not playing Smogon. I mean, I don't know, don't quote me on that. Maybe he'll come attack me and tell me about like the handful of Smogon games he's had. But
What
from
was your
what
reaction to the whole thing, like when you found out?
well, I was at work. I think you guys heard in chat a little. I was at work and I had just made that comic, and I'm usually used to people, kind of blowing up my notifications. I'm used to people kind of hating on them. It's whatever. Not everyone likes them.
Really, like
And
most
so
people I see, they get a lot of people just share the shit out of them. People love them
yeah,
for the
no, I
most
get
part.
tons of support, but whenever I make a comic, I do expect like a handful of,
Those
people who are basically quoting Gen 1 guy in their
the people
comments, but
validating your points.
exactly. But so I was at work and I was just on a quick 10-minute break, and I look at my phone and I see like a million messages, and I think it's just, the general
Hmm.
activity. But then from Ray, it was Ray's message. I see he's like shared a YouTube video to me, and I'm like, huh, Ray usually doesn't like message me one on one. Nor does he send me YouTube videos. Like, what the fuck is this? And so I clicked it, and I literally only heard like the first few words. I was in like a grocery store deli, so I couldn't really listen to his whiny voice in the middle of this grocery store. And so I exited out of the video, and I was like in group chat for a little bit and
Uh-huh.
looking, a bunch of people messaging my art page with links to the video, and kind of had to just be like, oh gosh, and then recheck it when I got off work like an hour later. But honestly, a lot of people approached me like thinking this was awful news, being like, oh shit, like he made this
It's like
video, I'm so
Leafy
sorry
blasted
about
you.
that. And I just laughed so hard. I seriously like was having trouble finishing my shift at work because I kept feeling my phone vibrate. And I was just so excited to go finish watching that video. I was seriously like, I was talking to a coworker. They were like, "What's up?" And I was like, "Apparently some YouTuber like dragged me for 15 minutes." And so then I got my coworkers laughing about it, and like they're all asking me for links, and I'm like, nah, you won't fucking understand a fucking word of it. They don't
The
play Pokemon.
normies.
Yeah, normies. But yeah, I listened to it on my drive home. It was perfect. It was like a 15-minute drive home. Listened to the video, and was just like seriously laughing so hard. It was like every time he made a new point, it just like made me laugh that much harder. And apparently my comics were making him laugh, and he was doing the whole, oh my gosh, like this is the funniest thing. Like
When he's really triggered
it,
as fuck.
It's just like such a poorly made layer of humor that's just covering how fucking
Insecure.
butthurt he is. Yeah, like how insecure do you have to be to project yourself onto that many comics? Like, not gonna lie, yeah, I've thrown shade at Verlisify in my comments before. I'm not really gonna say sorry. He's made himself a notorious YouTuber for drama. I don't really care if his fanboys come after me. Like, you're starting shit. Like, nah, I don't know. You could say that if you want. I don't really care. I'm gonna make fun of someone who is a dick. He's a dick. I don't really care if I make fun of him, and that's why I don't really care about the video. He just showed my comics. I have nothing to hide.
And he
Those are
linked
the
you in the description. You should feel
Yeah,
honored.
that is one thing I will say. Verlisify did a better job sourcing my comic than a lot of pages do. A lot of pages that are claiming to support me. So, that is an example people could learn from Verlisify. Always source your artists, even if
I'll
you're
give him credit for
actually.
that. Like
Yeah,
whenever
no,
he
thank.
drags somebody, at least links the video or the Twitter account or whatever.
Yeah, okay, so thank you, Verlisify, for that.
Realistify catches a W for that one. You
I
want to
guess
talk
it
about
makes.
any of the comics that like any of the other comics that he didn't get or just glossed over? Like he went over the Greninja one, the one with the Suicune and the Kangaskhan, as well as Do's and Don'ts, and we covered Typhlosion already.
Yeah, the one with the Kangaskhan and the Suicune I didn't understand because it was literally uh acknowledging his points earlier in his video talking about, well, yeah, you can do VGC singles, you can go off the same ban list, and that comic is acknowledging that logic of
Yeah,
people
it's
want to
conceding
just.
that point that you can do that if you
Yeah,
want.
and I just think he completely misunderstood it. And when he said this never happened, like, yeah, no, it didn't happen, not with me, but
Well, you know what else didn't happen? Smogon players, like actual forum members bashing VGC. That didn't happen either, but he claims it does.
yeah, I don't know. Anyone who takes each comic that literally and thinks that I was in like that exact experience needs to slow down and remember that it is a satirical series. I do a bit of liberties with chopping up dialogue to conveniently fit it in panels. That's just an artistic illustration viewpoint that is like kind of hard to explain to certain people. Like, yeah, I am fabricating some conversations. That's how satire comics work. What they need to understand is that it is being heavily referenced from firsthand experiences, regardless if an interaction played out like that exactly or not.
Right.
uh but yeah, that one, I don't think he understood it at all. I don't think he
Well,
understood several of them.
he had already clicked on the other comics and he went into that one with the assumption that you were talking about him. So that's why he kind of got
Yeah, that's
confused.
yeah, he was looking into a lot of the comics just immediately assuming that they were from a Smogon or Verlisify stance, when that's just not the case for a lot of them. And my problem is when I see someone in the group saying who wants to do a Smogon match, and a comment is, I don't know what Smogon is. And then before the person can even reply, a million people are saying, like, Smogon's stupid, they
No,
banned this.
Smogon
Like, you don't want
sucks.
to. Yeah. And when I see someone make a post that says, who wants to practice VGC, I don't see people going in there calling VGC stupid because like they don't do singles and stuff. I just simply don't see it. I know it happens. I know that there are instances where, Smogon players are being huge elitists. That's a problem. There's elitists in every community.
Mm-hmm.
But the bottom line, I just don't see it. And if Verlisify is convinced that it's backwards, all right, good on him. He doesn't really need to drag someone for 15 minutes to get that point across. Like, he just completely contradicts himself the whole video. He is perpetuating that last panel of don't be a dick. He just does it in his whole video, and I just think it's hilarious. Like, that's why I didn't take offense to the video. It made me laugh the whole time. The video basically was this huge validation to me. Like, wow, I'm not really just pulling this out of my ass. Like, people really do exist like this.
Also, why is it? I think I already know, but I guess I might as well ask you to clarify. Why is it? Why is he called Gen 1 guy? Like, where did that come from, and why did you include him in the other comics that didn't have anything to do with Gen 1 behavior?
My favorite question.
I already have an
um,
idea, but I'll let you go ahead and answer it.
the very first comic I made, he wasn't even called Gen 1 guy. Verlisify, actually, uh, viewed it in his video. It's a really low quality comic. Literally, the first one I made. It wasn't a series or anything, and it was a really general one. And
Yeah.
the guy, Gen 1 guy in that comic, did perpetuate a lot of Gen 1 mentalities. It was mainly, I don't like competitive Pokemon at all. Not I prefer VGC or Smogon. The main uh, mentality that he had in that comic was you're ruining the game by making it complicated by breeding and stuff.
Mm-hmm.
He didn't like any of it. And so, that's a typical Gen 1 or someone who doesn't like the complicated battle mechanics. And he had Gen 1 on his shirt because I just thought it would be like a funny little detail. And then I was encouraged to do some more comics because it's such a broad spectrum of things that you could like kind of poke fun at. And so I started doing more specific comics and people are giving me like actual ideas and stuff. And since it was kind of a continuation from the first one, I just kept the Gen 1 logo on his shirt. And for the most part, people understand that it's just kind of this non-specific detail to just kind of be like it's a callback. You have some comics
Yeah,
where
there's continuity. It's the same character.
yeah, there's continuity because it's a very he's an inconsistent character. You see him in one comic saying, "I hate competitive, I hate competitive battles altogether." Then you see him in another comic saying, "Oh well, I like this kind of competition, not this kind of competition." You have him in one comic saying, "All new Pokemon suck." Then you have him in another comic saying, "I love Greninja."
Right.
So he's obviously changes his stance a little for each comic. And I mean, he's just generic. He's just a generic bald guy. I can't emphasize how little thought I put into making him. And I was hoping that because he was so generic, it would make people less defensive, versus if I made him look like a stereotypical player with like a snapback or something, then suddenly every single person with a snapback is like getting defensive.
Or
But
making him look like red or something. I'm sure a lot of people will get butthurt about that.
exactly, I just made him generic. I thought that was the simplest thing. But obviously, from Verlisify, that that doesn't work out how I wanted it to, and people are still gonna get really defensive over it. But
Well,
yeah,
you
so
eventually had to take off the Gen 1 from his shirt because the topics you used them in weren't really about Gen 1ers anymore.
yeah, and so
But the design remained the same because it's simple and it's easy to draw.
exactly, and um yeah, I for a while kept the Gen 1 guy thing because the series is called Gen 1 guy, but the recent comics, unless it's actually like a Generation 1 topic, like you said, I've been opting out of it because I just have to explain myself so
Over
many
and over.
times. Yeah, so it's nice to finally be like, hey, like it's not that deep, fam.
Because that's
That's
one of the
literally
things he really threw a hissy fit about because he said that like one of his pet peeves was like attributing all behaviors that are bad to being a Gen 1er because he gets called a Gen 1er a lot, which I mean you can call Verlisify a lot of things, but that's not really one of them. But still, he got super defensive about it because he thought it was about him. And it just happened to
yeah.
be. I mean, he really just failed to read the description at the beginning of that album explaining why it's Gen 1 guy, and and that's basically it, and why it doesn't matter.
Yeah, honestly, if Verlisify had just slowed down, read some of the disclaimers I had, browsed through some comics, he probably would have had a really different video. Not saying he wouldn't have got mad or anything, but he probably wouldn't have made his video like talking and making it up as he went along and pulling shit talk out of his ass. Like it I don't know,
Got to
you
get
can
those
kind of
daily
tell that
uploads.
yeah, you can kind of tell that he kind of struggles to find things to nitpick at a few spots, and it's just kind of like, ooh, like I don't know if that's what you think is fun, and is that's how you want to like exert your energy, is by, lurking through my whole album, like, have at it. Like, I don't know. I think instead of making a giant video dragging me because he sees himself in this character, he should self-reflect, wonder why he sees himself in this awful character, maybe rethink how he talks to some of his viewers. The sad thing is, I went through the comments of the video. I only skimmed a few, but uh, quite a bit of them are either telling him to chill out or reminding him that a lot of his viewers are Smogon players or use third party, like, hacking genning devices, which we haven't talked about much, but
I
a
mean,
lot
a
of
lot of my
his,
viewers already know what my stance is on that, and like, there's just not much to talk about there because you either disagree with me or you don't. And I mean, I was planning to like give you a chance to talk about that in terms of anything else you wanted to say before we wrap up. But yeah, like a lot of the comments are just his own fans telling him to chill.
yeah, no, and it kind of bums me out because the thing this guy doesn't get is that people do like him. People are watching his videos and look up to him. He does have a lot of really new players who watch his videos because his videos are popular, and new players are going to be exposed to them. When I first started competitive, uh, mainly it was among the admin team. You guys were like holding my hand the whole time, still are. But when I would look up videos on YouTube, it's like I have to scroll down past like the first or second one because they're almost always Verlisify or some other like underqualified YouTuber, and other people don't have that context. They see his like really cool thumbnails and they view it, and it's like, whatever. He shows them gimmicky sets. That's not super toxic, whatever. He can show people his shitty gimmicky sets. That's not why he's toxic. He's toxic because he thinks that to be a good Pokemon player, you have to be like an elitist about it. He's such a hypocrite when it comes to that. And it just bums me out because I know that he does have a lot of younger, newer players that watch his videos, and
He
they
just
think it's
alienates them off the bat because he doesn't even really like VGC all that much anymore. He's made like his past like 5 really controversial videos have all been about how the Pokemon company sucks because this and that and cheating. That's pretty much the
yeah,
point.
I mean, what didn't he like do like 3-0 at Seattle or something, and he just left?
Well,
I
it's
heard
like it was
something
like
about
oh
how
04.
and then he
I mean,
just
to be
left.
fair to him, that was a while ago now. But yeah, he's not really a distinguished VGC
That's
player.
that's that's the only like actual knowledge I know about him is, I live in the Seattle area, so that's how I heard about it.
Well,
And
because me
so,
and Daniel were fucking dragging him through the mud through the admin chat when we found out. It was amazing.
yeah, because he was talking shit about VGC players around that time. I don't remember the exact ordeal, but I know he was publicly calling him out on Twitter, only for like in this around the same time for that to happen. And I'm not trying to pull up like these old receipts, but when that is my like main impression of like his actual, competitive establishment, it's really easy for me to just dismiss what he says. I'm not competitive. I don't claim to be a competitive player myself. Like,
You're
sorry.
definitely one of the Smogon admins, aren't you?
Oh yeah, totally. I'm part of that high council.
Yep,
You
you're
caught.
that OU council, that the
Oh
tournament
yeah.
directors. You're in with all of them.
Uh-huh. Nazi, not a classic Nazi admin, Smogon propaganda. But you threw me off when you asked that question for a moment. Like, took me a moment. But
It took you a moment to register.
yeah, but yeah, like I said, he's talking shit about me in his video, and he doesn't realize that a lot of his players do a lot of the play style that I have, which is, using power saves, using genning, playing Smogon, just being kind of liberal about play styles. And I saw just today, like, people commenting on his video, like, well, hey, Verlisify, what about these kind of hackers? Or, well, what if I only use power save this way? Like, they're groveling to get his validation,
Approval.
and it's
Jesus.
sad. And it's sad that he's creating this atmosphere. Like, I don't know. I don't get comments like that on my comics.
It is
Like,
kind of sad because I imagine a lot of his fans would actually enjoy your comics because they don't see They don't see themselves in it, so it's all fun and games until someone gets
I mean,
defensive.
you're right, because I've had a handful of them already come up to me on my page and tell me that they enjoy my comics and they think he was overreacting. See, the thing is Verlisify started his, popularity, from my understanding, from doing his gimmicky sets and trying to advocate that you can use your favorites in whatever way you want. I have my own criticism of that kind of mentality. It's all fun and everything, but you need to recognize that there's a lot of people who do want legitimate competitive advice. They're going to YouTube for that legitimate
Yeah, they're looking
advice.
for the standard spreads.
Yeah, and if you want to give your gimmicky sets and, encourage people to use their favorites, go for it. I personally have, I see the appeal of it. I've done my own shitty Karenite teams before. You know how much I love my dumb fuck fairies, but
And your Pikachu.
and my Pikachu, but doesn't he have a video about like a physical Sylveon?
That was one example. Fury Cutter Venusaur was another one. That's the only attack on that Venusaur set is Fury Cutter.
Yeah, I mean, like, if you want to go try those sets, go do them.
He has this
If you want
obsession
to,
with Nummel.
yeah, if you want to, give people blatantly false experience and like pretend that these things are viable, that's when you start, creating kind of a crappy name for yourself. And uh there's so many people that would probably listen to this interview and be like, wow, they're elitist, they're pretentious, competitive, da, da, da. But the thing that people don't understand is, like, yeah, we're talking about the competitive community. If you are casual and you don't care about all those things, that's fine. You can go on your way. But Verlisify has this weird middle ground. He like wants to be both, and then
Yeah,
he doesn't
doesn't
like
like VGC,
system.
doesn't like Pokemon Company, doesn't like Smogon, but still thinks he's competitive. So I guess before we wrap up, is there anything in general you want to talk about? Like, doesn't have to be about Verlisify, just like your art page, genning and hacking. What do you think about that? Anything you want to add?
Honestly, just that I'm like super duper thankful for the Pokemon community. A lot of my comics make it seem like all I do is complain and bitch and moan, which I do a lot of that. But like, honestly, the Pokemon community is amazing. My comics make it, sometimes my comics kind of paint like this certain image, but if you're actually a player in the community, that's not the case. You know that we can poke fun at that and everything. But for the most part, everyone is so supportive. Everyone is such a good player. That's what I love about Nintendo, and the competitive scene in Nintendo is, as bad as we think it is, like, it's nothing compared to, the more mainstream games and esports. It's just nothing compared to that. And I don't know, I just have like a never ending appreciation for the people who share my stuff, comment on my stuff, like it. I don't know, I just like
The
can't
link
say
will
enough.
be in the description box below.
Oh yeah. I got a fancy little shout out thing. Can't wait to see this on an actual video.
Also,
But
like,
yeah,
what should I title this? I honestly cannot come up with it. Should I just title it like Verlangen Lotte response to Verlisify? That's
yeah,
pretty
I
simple,
guess
and
some like that.
it'll
But
get
yeah,
the clicks going.
oh yeah, they'll see Verlisify and they'll just be like, drama.
No. I mean, I was actually planning to make this like a small part and then me talking about the rest, but this was a lot better than I could have asked for. So